He didn't give them less than they would need to get their job done. He didn't give them more that they could use and not know what to do with. The good owner knows his servants, and he gives what they need to do what they need to do. And in the same way, God gives us a different life. He doesn't set us up for failure. He sets us up with our gifts and talents and treasure and time so we can be a success in this world for what He wants us to do. Not that we will gain material. That's not success. But that we will be able to do what the owner wants us to do. He makes it possible to actually produce something. That's good news. We can gain joy from using these things. Others can benefit from their use. God can be given glory because we are stewarding what we've been given. But now we move to the second question. What am I going to do with it? If it's all His, if all the time and our talent and our treasure and our testimony aren't ours, if we're just stewards of it, then what are we going to do with it? In the parable, we have two different responses to this. The first steward, the first two, they put their money to work and they double what they had. And the owner comes back and he's pleased. Now, he didn't look at the guy who had 2 talents and say, "How come you didn't make 5 like the other guy?" He was very pleased that he took his 2 and he made 2 more. "I was expecting 3. Instead, because the steward used what he had in the portion that he was given, the owner was pleased. That is the right response. Using what we have in the measure that we're given. It's simply that. That fixes jealousy. That fixes a covetous heart. That fixes worry about, oh, maybe I don't have enough. Using what we have in the measure that we're given. But the third guy, he did nothing. He buried it. The question is why? I think there's a lot of reasons that people don't use what they've been given by God, or they misuse what they've been given by God. Now keep in mind, those are not necessarily unequal. Just someone can be using their talent, but using it wrong. This guy planted it in the ground, hoping a money tree would pop out. That's wrong. He would have been very surprised if a money tree would have popped right out of there and he could have just picked, "Look, Lord, look what I did." But that's the wrong use. Take a look at the third steward's response. This story gives us 2 big reasons why people don't use their gifts or use them properly. Verse 24. Then the man who'd received the 1 talent came. "Master," he said, "I know that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed." Now get the picture here. This guy is such a businessman. He actually goes and finds, he's walking through the ditch and he sees, oh, grain, and he puts that in his pocket. He didn't put seed there, he's just taking the freebies he can find. That's how much this guy wants to gain. And the steward says, "So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. See, this is what belongs to you." The first reason I believe that people they don't use what God gives them is because they have a bad relationship with, or they totally misunderstand the owner. This servant didn't really like his master. He was actually afraid of him. He couldn't care less about pleasing him. He was just trying not to get punished. He was thinking more of himself than the master. But is the owner like that? Is he selfish? Is he cruel? It doesn't sound like it to me from the picture that I'm getting from the story. The owner delegates according to the ability of the servant. That shows me that he understands his people, he cares about them, and he's wise in how he deals with things. He leaves them in charge and lets them do their job. That shows a confidence and a trust. He gives them a huge amount to work with and a lot of time to do it. That shows generosity. That shows patience. And when he comes back, he doesn't just grab the money out of their hands and walk away. He swells with joy and pride, and he invites them to come and to party with him and to celebrate. This doesn't sound like a bad guy. This third steward had a totally backwards understanding of what his true master was like. And I think that we have that about God sometimes too. So we don't give our time to God because we think that God is selfish, because he doesn't give us enough time to work with. If he knows what he's put on my plate, he'd know I don't have time to give him any. What a selfish God. We don't give our talents and our abilities to God's kingdom because we think that God doesn't reward very well. I can get a lot more praise and money and thanks if I go use all my stuff in the secular market. I can be a motivational speaker who plays guitar and get a lot more money. So we don't give our talent to God because we can get more elsewhere, because he's not a very good rewarder. We don't give our treasure or our wealth to him because, well, God's greedy. He's always thinking about money. He always wants our stuff. The whole reason he set up this religion thing is because he wanted to get the weak-willed suckers and take some of their cash. I think one reason we bury our talent is because we don't know the owner that well. The second reason that some of us bury our talents, and remember, I use the word talent, and I mean time, treasure, talent, and testimony, is because we're afraid of risk. We don't be a good steward of it because we're afraid of risk. The first two stewards, they had to take a risk. They might have lost the money. The third guy was afraid to take a risk. He wouldn't even put his money in the bank. What if the bank got robbed? So I know what I'll do. I'll go bury it in a field. And then I'm 99% sure I'm going to get it back. That's fear. He thought if he just buried it, he would get less punishment. But that's not the case, because the talent was given to him so that he would actually use it. Since the master gives talents according to the abilities, we can imagine what God thought of this guy, or the master thought of this guy. He gave him the minimum amount possible. You get one. That directly translates to the fact that I really didn't expect much from you. Could someone turn on the AC? Take a look at verse 26. We get as much from this. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant, you knew I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed." In other words, you know that I'm all about getting as much as I possibly can out of what I have. You know that I'm all about squeezing every drop out of every opportunity because I want profit. I want gain. I am an owner. I want money, and that's it. Then he says, you know what? You should have put your money on deposit with the bankers, because then at least I would have had interest. Right? In other words, he says you should have done something